Okay, people. So now it's like February 6th, 2019. And it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take this camera and just kind of walk you through a couple of things that I'm working on in terms of throughout my day, right? And what brings me to this video is, as I'm sitting here, you know, thinking, right? About filing this lawsuit against Fraser Health Authority in regards to what happened to Shimei's body. It's not what happened to Shimei, because what happened to Shimei happened in the house, people. But when it comes to Fraser Health Authority, it's what happened to her body after it got to the hospital. So obviously I have to file another lawsuit, because you can't take it to the cops, right? Because the cops they're not dealing with what happened in the house. And because they're not dealing with what happened in the house, it's allowing Fraser Health Authority to get away with what they did with Shimei's body once it got to their facilities after it left the house. And it didn't leave on its own. It was taken out, people. My daughter's body was taken out of here in a fucking hammock. She wasn't even on a gurney. Okay? So, in light of some things that, like, you know, people go into my old videos, right? And, you know, because I've been talking about bullshit for years. My son says to me, you know, Mom, like I said, I'm always in combat mode. You know, it's not like I have a normal fucking life here, right, people? So, take it further back to when Andre was apprehended, illegally apprehended, people. Lawyers like to call it wrongfully. I call it illegally, because it was done illegally. But besides that point, right? For 15 months, our life was torn upside down. And, you know, the system itself in terms of child apprehension in the Western world and in Europe and places like that is corrupt. Because it's more based on the financial money train that's centered around the protection of children than it is about actually protecting children and helping families. Right? And because it's such a general consensus in terms of just that's the way we do business, nobody really challenges the system. And when they do, it's done independently. And when it's being done independently, it's very easy for these corrupt judges that like to falsify their transcripts to also falsify other transcripts and just, you know, keep with the status quo, because it's a staple for the state, for the lawyers. It's a staple income for the lawyers. It's something that they can budget their fucking spending habits around, because they know that within this fiscal period of a year, you know, chances are if they're in that specialty, right, in terms of child protection and family law and all that other stuff, then, you know, like, you know, it's just an income that they can count on, people. So for example, in the province of British Columbia, Canada, a couple of years ago, I don't know what it is now, but, you know, a maximum of 10,000 children had to be within the system of the ministry that monitors and acts on that behalf, right? Just 10,000 children just to be able to get the block funding that was coming in from the provincial government. So there's that money change, right? That money train, money change, whatever you want to call it. But so therefore cops don't do nothing. They don't do nothing when things are being done wrong. That's the point of that, right? They stand back and they say, oh, well, the social worker knows what's best. Oh, you know, there's no crime being committed here and everything's under investigation and this is the way we do it. Right? And that's how they justify it. And then so what happens is people start to lose their rights, because when they try and fight one by one as individuals in individual court settings in individual provinces and in individual states, they're too dispersed to be able to have a voice heard. Right? So no justice for Andre. No justice for his mother. No justice for our family other than we got Andre back. Right? But Andre lost his mother out of what happened. Right? We lost 15 months. If Andre would have stayed home at the time, Shimei would have finished high school if Andre would have been home and would have proceeded to go into college for whatever reason she wanted to go in terms of being a nurse. She'd more than likely be alive today if Andre would have not been taken. Because our lives wouldn't have been disrupted in such a bad way. Where that cortisol in the brain gets so out of control that the developing brain can't process it. And they fall through the cracks. That's how children fall through the cracks, people. Because you have to remember, when they took Andre, Shimei went downstairs. And went downstairs with depression. Right? And because Auntie Joan went into the long-term care facility, Uncle John came upstairs. But not even 1 year after getting him back, what happens? He disappears. Medically kidnapped through a healthcare facility. And where's the cops? They don't do nothing. Nothing, people, nothing. They send you to a lawyer that they know you can't get. Because pro bono is monitored through the Bar Association. Only so many lawyers can do pro bono so many times. And those pro bonos are pre-approved, just like when you go into the court system with your case file. I'm sorry, with your little notice of claim or lawsuit or whatever the freak it is you want to take in front of a judge. Before you even get in front of a judge or a master's or whatever it is, that first time, it's already been through somebody else's desk and saying, well, no, it doesn't qualify for this pile. It qualifies for that pile. So by the time you show up to your court date, the judge has already got the note in the freaking folder that it's to be dismissed. Even though it's a very valid case. Because there's nobody there monitoring it. There's nobody there stopping it. The police won't stop it. They won't stop it any more than they stop medical kidnappings. Just because you don't see it, people, and you don't hear it a lot, doesn't mean it doesn't fucking happen, because it's happening. If the fentanyl issue was to kill off 80% of every overdose that goes through the system, then there would be a public outcry, for sure. Because 80% die-off is extremely noticeable. But if the die-off is only 10%, then people don't notice it so much. Especially if that 10% is being criminalized through suggestion, propaganda, spin, gaslighting techniques, psychological warfare. Oh, the guy was just depressed. He was just some construction dude that, was up on the freaking Raptors, banging away, and decided to go home and kill himself because he was so depressed. When in fact, maybe one of his buddies fucking murdered him and got paid for it. But the cops aren't doing their job. They're not investigating that shit. No. They're just rubber stamping right along with the coroner saying, suicide. Oh, okay, well, no, accident. Go back into my videos, people. The narrative hasn't changed there because the cops ain't doing shit. Thousands of people are dying with fentanyl and the cops ain't doing shit. Right? Because not 80% of those 1,000 that are overdosing are dying, right? Only 10% are dying out of 100, not 80%. If 80% of the people were dying from fentanyl on that first overdose, like Shimei, that was the one and only time she has ever overdosed. Isn't that interesting, people? She only grew up with a daughter with a sister that had drug addiction problems. As if Shimei was that ignorant to put herself in a position where she's gonna go off and do fucking drugs at 8 o'clock in the morning and sit there and freely die knowing that an overdose could happen at any time. No Narcan kits around, no fucking friends around, nothing. Well, yeah, everybody was in the house, but nobody knew what was going on except for the one that fucking did it. And the cops ain't doing nothing, people. Nothing. Ask them how many people have gone to jail for murder in the province of British Columbia, Canada, because of fentanyl, and they'll tell you, not one. Not one. Why is that, people? Why? Over 1,100 people, 1,139 people, last time I checked, for 2017, that was 17 numbers, died from fentanyl-related death. That was probably a mere 10% out of the total population in terms of people coming into contact with fentanyl and overdosing. Only 10% died. That was that 1,100. All the other ones, they were Narcan. Their lives were saved. And they continued to do it and overdose. Oh, God. You know, Sierra, on a good month, could be 8 times. Narcan are 8 times a month. See what that does to the brain, people. But not Shmei. 1 time. Cops don't want to do shit about it. Any more than they want to do about that 10% that get medically kidnapped through these healthcare systems. Any more than they want to do anything about kids being wrongfully and illegally apprehended from homes and then disrupting those homes to the point where they're getting to the point of being destroyed. Cops don't want to do anything about that. So when I file this lawsuit, people, I'm going to have to bring in the province. I have to, people. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about it, and I'm going to file against Fraser Health Authority of what they did to my daughter's body when it it was taken to the hospital like these people are body snatchers or something. That's how I feel, people. It feels like they're fucking body snatchers. Okay? I have pictures of my daughter that if you seen them, you'd be aghast. Okay? Not to mention the memories. And common sense. So, in light of going into a court system where more than likely it will be a fucking witch hunt, I feel like I'm in the 18th century. Okay? 18th century, people. It's a little fuzzy, but I don't want to whack it because then it gets all whatever, right? Where I'm standing in front of this one, I'm going to end it here. Okay? Just imagine me in the 18th century, 17th century, right? Okay, with, those clothes and everything. And you go into some, I don't want to call it a dungeon, but some kind of castle that they have, the big, what do you call those things? Boulders of, rock that's pieced in to make fucking walls and, and the judge, talk about a real chamber, right? With your judges with the silver hair on, right? And their big, whatever, cloaks. And I'm standing there. Without my hands tied. They could be, they could not be, it wouldn't matter. And I'm trying to tell them my story. And they're just hell-bent on fucking just burning me alive, people. Seriously. It's like a lynching. It's like, I feel like I'm going into a lynching party when I take this back to court. Because I have, first of all, no other recourse. I cannot go looking around town for a lawyer that's going to be told not to help me. Through the grapevine, one way or another, right? Because that isn't in the best interest of society. All right? In terms of 10% die-off for fentanyl is fairly reasonable, so let's just move on and continue with business as usual. So what if 10% of the elderly population end up like Uncle John? It's only 10% and they're old and their brains don't matter, right? Their memories, their love for people, whatever it is that it is with that 10% of those old people that are falling through the cracks within the freaking healthcare system, right? Being medically kidnapped so their assets can be seized, whether they're seized through the public guardian and trustee and it goes into court that way, or whether it's like what happened with Uncle John, where, you know, he was just a bone for some greedy ass fucking nurse that, you know, put him in a hammock, made sure he was drugged up so he couldn't fight back, took him over, you know, and rushed him into emergency, and, you know, and look how we found him, and oh, poor John. Now, where's his money? Here, John, sign now. Here. No, you can't talk to the kids. You're not better yet. We haven't gotten all the signatures that we need yet. But, you know, so you're not allowed to have a life anymore. Because, and again, where's the cops? What? I didn't give them enough paperwork. I didn't file an official fucking file. I've only been talking on about it. I filed a fucking lawsuit, right? You know, again, the judge should be telling Fraser Health Authority to cough up those fucking files, give those files to the judge, and then I should get a copy, people. And then we can discuss it as a group to see where the mistakes were made, if any. Considering Fraser Health Authority's stance on life in terms of they don't do nothing wrong, ever. So now I'm in front of a judge, a couple of them, 1 or 2 or 3, it doesn't really matter, right? Facing Fraser Health Authority by myself, with nobody to oversee Fraser Health Authority, because the cops aren't doing it, right? That's already been determined. Doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that one out. So I'm going to have to include the province so that they can get the full information in terms of how my family is being targeted and has been targeted for a very, very long time. Right? And the healthcare system is one of those main factors where that targeting comes from. Right? And then the province can ask Fraser Health Authority to get them the papers. Because we know that the province isn't going to admit to anything. Because those are just, 89 politicians sitting up in the parliament buildings? Why would they want to admit to the fuck-ups of Fraser Health Authority? They're not going to. But it's their responsibility to monitor the Fraser Health Authority. Right? As it's sitting in front of a judge that more than likely is corrupt, white, old, sitting high on the horse with his pension plans, doesn't give a shit, has been paid off a long time ago, bought off, paid off, whatever you want to call it. That's how he got there, more than likely. Right? With Andrew the Dragon, and we know how he operates. And then a province that's going to come in saying, why the fuck are we here? Well, why are you calling us in? What for? But they're not going to want to go against the grain. So they're going to side with the crooked judge and Andrew the Dragon. And what, are they going to tell me to go call in the fucking cops to get the information? I'll be like, no, Your Honor, they're the province. Let them go fucking find the information. Right? And everybody knows if you file a lawsuit, here's the catch-22, people. Everybody knows. Everybody knows, right? One of those things. That if you go against the province, you file a lawsuit against the province, the actual province itself, you're not going to win. If you thought you had it bad against Fraser Health Authority, how the heck are you going to get anywhere with the province itself? But if I don't bring in the province, people, we're not going to get the truth. We're not. We're not. We're going to get a bunch of fake, funky case files that are unrelated to Shimei or anything else that has happened to this family for a long time. Right? And another one of my family members will be targeted in the manner that they have already been targeted. Because there's nothing or nobody there to hold them account in terms of what these people do. Right? Because the police aren't doing it. That's all I wanted to say. That I'm tossing it around in my head as to, do I file another lawsuit just against Fraser Health Authority, knowing how negligent they are in and out of court? Or do I file it against Fraser Health Authority and the provincial province for failing to monitor the health authority and other ministries in terms of policing, right, that you can't rely on, and when it comes to investigations like with what happened to Shimei, right? In and out of the house, because there's two justices going on here, people. Right? Most people get to... I'm going to end it on this one. You see, they didn't pronounce Shimei dead, and this is why I'm going to file the lawsuit, people. They didn't pronounce Shimei dead in the house Can you just go back to the room for 10 minutes? I'm almost done. Okay. I heard you. I'll be done in 5 minutes. Go.
Oh, is teacher almost here?
Yeah, go. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm also tired of stuff.
Okay, well, go get a little more catnap. They did not pronounce Shimei dead in the house. Because if they would have done that, people, which would have been the right thing to do, regardless, .9% of what would have happened is the coroner would have been called, and there would have been proper evidence gathering, right? In terms of going through the basement to whatever, to determine how she died. And because the death would have been undetermined, because nobody would have suspected it, they would have had to have done an autopsy. Are you listening to me, people? They would have had to do an autopsy. And they didn't want to do that, people, because they didn't want to destroy her organs. Would I have been able to donate them at the time of the autopsy? I don't know. Because they sure in the hell weren't doing it for organ donation in terms of a legal sense. In terms of not pronouncing her dead. Okay? I don't think so. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe some things, maybe not. I don't know. I just know that if they would have pronounced her dead in the basement and nobody had even any inclination as to what was wrong with her, they would have had to have done an autopsy through a coroner, a real coroner investigation. And once the dots started to connect after the fact, right, it would have became a criminal investigation versus me having to fight for that It just would have gone into that on its own, and they would have had the evidence well preserved, well collected, documented, and there wouldn't have been, well, it's all, hearsay. It's all circumstantial. You ruined the evidence. I ruined the evidence, people. Had a cop stand there and accuse me of ruining the evidence, when in fact they should have collected the evidence from the fucking get-go. And my daughter's body should have went immediately into an autopsy. And if they could have freaking salvaged some of the organs along the way in terms of legal donation towards organ donation, right? That should have been done as well. But they didn't want to gamble with that. Right? Because the financial kickbacks around that 10% of people dying from fentanyl overdose is too large. Right? And Fraser Health Authority is not going to take responsibility for something that benefits the actual provincial government in that context. Right? And I don't think the cops want to investigate Fraser Health Authority because there's one of two things there. They're either a part of it and they know what the fuck is going on and they're facilitating it, and that's why nobody goes to jail, because it keeps the bodies coming, right? So the body snatchers can go pick them up and decide what they want to do with them before they fucking wheel off in that direction. Some get for autopsy, the ones that, like Sierra. Watch, they'll be autopsying Sierra. Even though she's had 500 freaking overdoses, when it's Sierra's turn, they'll be calling me up. Oh, well, we autopsied your daughter. Do you feel better? Well, no, I don't, because Sierra doesn't need it, because we know what happened to Sierra. But with Shimei, we still don't know, people. And what we do know, everybody's in denial.